Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Thursday Thoughts? What on earth are they, I hear you ask? Well, my friend Lucy and I meet every week over on Instagram to talk all things personal growth because she is as obsessed with it as I am. And we decided that we might as well put those conversations out as a weekly podcast. So now you can listen to us chat here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be talking about topics such as spirituality, limiting beliefs, the ego, imposter syndrome, gratitude, meditation, confidence, and so much more. So if you're ready, here we go. Today, we are talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. This is obviously very similar to sort of our limiting beliefs, but actually, we can tell ourselves all sorts of stories, both positive and negative stories. And it's really, really important to make sure that we understand the stories that we are feeding ourselves.
Yeah.
So, for example, for a long time, I fed myself the story that I'm a shy person. I identified with being a shy person, and the reason for that, when I look back over the course of my life, as a little girl, as a 5-year-old, as a 3-year-old, I used to constantly hide behind my parents' legs and not want to talk to anyone. So I wasn't really a big extrovert, but that kind of gave me this label that I was someone who was shy. I didn't like to talk to people. And I have hidden behind that label for for most of my life
Mm.
and didn't really ever question it. It was very much like, this is who I am, because I would feel unconfident in social situations where there was a lot of people there and I had to talk, and it was much more comfortable just to stand back and hold back. But actually, what I realize now is yes, maybe I'm not a natural extrovert and feel naturally totally comfortable when there's a load of people in front of me.
Mm.
But what I realize now is actually I can change that story. I don't have to have that label of being a shy person. Actually, I can say, well, sometimes I find I feel more comfortable when there's a smaller group, or if I don't really, or I feel more comfortable if I'm standing up talking to, just a few people than a big crowd. But actually, I can be that confident person. It's not that I'm shy. It's not that I can't do it. It's just so it's totally possible to change that story, and I have changed that story. I don't necessarily identify with that
Yeah.
anymore. So what we're saying here is that it's really important to understand the labels that you give yourself or someone else has given to you throughout your life. It might just have been a teacher at school who you hated and made out that you were terrible at maths. And ever since then, you've always identified with that, going, I'm really bad at maths. I can't do maths, because perhaps you had terrible teachers, you didn't do so well in your exams, and you've now given yourself that label. And so you give up, you avoid any
Yeah.
maths. Doesn't mean you can't do numbers. It just means that in that situation, you weren't given the best possible chance to do it. And maybe you are better at other things, but do you need to have that label? You probably, if you sat down and got your head around it, you probably could get by. You need to do what you need to do. So
Mm.
what we're just saying here is it's just very good just to question those stories in your mind
Yeah.
and feed it with a new story, because your mind doesn't know the difference. So you can actually start to reprogram your mind with really positive thoughts, positive stories, the ones that you want to believe. So I am confident. I can stand up in front of a group of people and talk very confidently. These are the types of stories which are much more empowering for all of us.
Totally. Funnily enough, maths was a story that I've always had, and I still tell myself that I'm shit at maths. I was rubbish at maths at school, but I think actually looking back, I just didn't give a shit, so I didn't work.
Yeah.
I couldn't have given a shit about maths, so I didn't do the work required to get it. I failed my maths GCSE first time. I had to retake it because I just didn't enjoy it. But one of my big stories that I told myself, and still sometimes do. So I'm the middle child of an older sister and a younger brother, and I had this story since I was young that I was the stupid one and they were the brainy ones. Like I still have that story somewhere in my subconscious mind. And even though I know it's not true, but it's just such a kind of fixed story, that I've had for years and years and years and years. And like I say, now, I have worked on that, and it doesn't play out in the same way that it used to. But actually, to a certain extent, I still kind of become that person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
In
totally,
certain
because
situations.
in my family, my sister felt exactly the same. She always
Really?
thought that she was the stupid one. She was sort of put in, and it's no fault of anybody's, but parents, schools, culture, whatever, can put you into a box.
Yeah.
So my sister and I were put into boxes. I was the bright one, and she was the arty, more creative one. So I
Yeah.
always thought I was absolutely crap at anything creative and arty,
Mm,
which is absolute bullshit. And she always thought that she was really, really not very clever, which again is complete rubbish. And those are the labels we were given,
yeah.
and so that there you start to believe them, and you start to act them out and play into
Mm,
that, and use them as excuses, or use them, yeah, you just label yourself, and you merge with that identity
yeah.
rather than question it, going, no, that's actually totally not true. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Um, because for me, yeah, it was kind of creativity and art, being artistic, and I always thought, and I still do to some extent, think I'm absolutely crap at art, but actually so creative in so many other ways.
Mm.
Um,
It's
so
so
yeah.
weird, isn't it? I had it that I was always the musical one. So my brother and sister were academic and super bright. I was good at music, but it was like that was, you know, it felt to me like that was a way of saying that I just wasn't the bright one because I was good at, do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Rather
Yeah,
than, oh, the fact that you're really good at music is like this great thing. To me, it was a less than thing. So it's fascinating how we do this. And actually, I think this kind of, we've talked about growth mindsets before. I think this kind of feeds into the idea of a growth mindset, because what's the other one called? I've completely forgotten the name. If you're growth minded, or if you're,
um,
what's the term? God, I can't even
fixed
remember.
fixed
Fixed.
mindset.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, and I think that it's so important to have a growth mindset, because and apart from anything else, when it comes to sort of intelligence and all of that kind of stuff, number one, and we've talked about this before, the most successful people are not necessarily the brightest people, the quote unquote brainy people. It's just
Hmm.
not the way that the world works, because actually it's a lot more to do with persistence and consistency and not giving up and a million different things that can create success or bring somebody success. But I think it's really important that we sort of, well, learn about growth mindset, and I've completely forgotten the author of that brilliant book, Mindset,
So,
by Carol Dweck.
Carol, yeah.
Carol Dweck, she's done all the research on the. Well, she's written a very kind of, it was a very sort of. I actually found it quite a hard going book. It's definitely not a light read, but
No.
it's very, very interesting. The research that she sort of cites in that book to do with the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And oh, that's so weird. Sorry. I just got distracted because I've got my phone leaning up against my laptop, and suddenly the screen went a bit weird. Don't know what's going on. Um, but yeah, it's growth mindsets are when you realize that actually nothing is fixed and that you absolutely can learn a new skill. I think we hold ourselves back with these stories that we tell ourselves, and that is very much a sign of having a fixed mindset, whereas when you have a growth mindset, which is kind of open to learning, you realize that actually if you decide to, you can learn to do anything you freaking well want. And that's something, for example, going back to my maths example, that I was always shit at maths. I'm pretty sure that if I just put my mind on, if I decided to do whatever it was in terms of maths, then I'd be perfectly capable of doing it. It's just the fact is that at the time I didn't care, and blah 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 blah. So I've just ended up with this story that's just continued throughout my life, that I'm really bad at maths. But we
Yeah.
all do it, don't we? But
Yeah.
like you so rightly said, we have to choose the stories that we want to tell ourselves, because we do get to choose them. And like you with confidence, you decided to let go of that story telling you that you were really, really shy. And actually now, and that's made a really big difference, because you're like, no, 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 I'm not gonna take this story through the rest of my life with me. I'm not, I don't have to think of myself as shy, and I'm perfectly capable of building my own confidence.
Yeah. And honestly, that is such a common one, I think, and it's yet
Yeah.
such at the same time it's kind of quite an easy one to change, because you just have to notice that thought on, and I still get those feelings before I walk into a room or before I'm about to do something or present to something,
Mm,
or and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this thing which makes me feel immensely uncomfortable. But now I'm aware of it, I can take a few deep breaths, and I literally change my posture,
mm,
shoulders back, stand up straight, say to myself, tell myself, I've totally got
mm,
this. I
mm.
have something really great to share. And it makes all the difference just how you hold yourself walking into that room with that. If you're telling yourself a story of like, oh, I'm shy, I hate this, and your shoulders sort of curl, you lean forward, everything changes about you. But when you're telling yourself, I'm confident, I've got this, I can do this, these feelings I'm feeling are actually excitement. They're not fear, and it can change everything. And once you start to experience those types of feelings and thoughts, then naturally your brain is going to associate those those experiences more
Mm.
with those feelings, and so naturally you become more confident every time you're put in that situation.
Yeah.
And then we've also got the confirmation bias. We are programmed to always seek what we what we want, what we're focusing our attention on,
What we believe.
and what we believe. So if we believe that we're really, for example, I mean, I'm using this example, but if we believe that we are really shy, we haven't got any confidence, we can't do something,
Mm,
or nothing ever works out for us, or oh, I'm so unlucky. If we believe all of that, then we're going to just find more of it, because
yeah.
our detecting system inside of our brain will just find more examples of that, because it's just
Hmm.
looking to confirm that that's what my experience is. But if we shift that through our thoughts, through our behaviors, through the stories that we tell ourselves, so we can shift it to more positive stories, then we're going to find more examples of when we're absolutely bossing it
Yeah.
and we're capable and we're everything we want to be. Because our brains are plastic, because of neuroplasticity, we can absolutely change the way that we think about
Yeah.
things. So that's the coolest thing, and that actually has only been discovered relatively recently in terms of
Yeah.
in terms of neuroscience, that
Yeah.
we can actually change. We are not set in our ways. It was always believed that you are what you are and
Yeah.
that's your personality, but it's
Yeah.
absolutely not true whatsoever.
Yeah.
We can
Totally.
reprogram ourselves to become who we want to become.
Totally.
So we can stand up tall, we can, but yeah, we can learn what we need in order to become that person.
Yeah, completely. And you're right. I think I'm right in saying that it was only in about the last 10 or 15
Yeah,
years that
yeah,
neuroplasticity became this thing that people understood, that, like you say, that we can literally rewire our brains. And that's really bloody exciting, because as you and I know, and we've talked about this, I'm sure, on Thursday Thoughts before, Monday Motivation before, but we are being run by our subconscious. 95% of our life is being run by our subconscious beliefs. But the great news is that we can choose new beliefs that tell ourselves, a different story. And this is where things like meditation come in really well, because and things like affirmations that I go on and on about, because I think affirmations are absolutely brilliant. And when you listen to affirmations, or you say affirmations first thing in the morning, when your brain is, when you're still in that kind of sleepy state, and your subconscious mind is much more receptive, we can literally rewire our brains. It's as simple as that. And also, it's about becoming the version of you that you want to be. It's about making a decision about who you want to be and leaning into that. And I look back at myself and I mean, I'm still the same person as I ever was, of course, but I'm also really different to how I used to be. And I look back at myself in my teenage years, in my 20s and my 30s, and you know, I feel so differently about so many things, and it's because of all the sort of inner work I've done over the last 4 or 5 years. I've managed to really change the way that I think, and ultimately it's about cultivating that positive mindset that we talk about so much. And you know, always feel like you've got to say, no, this isn't about toxic positivity, because people have got such a thing about toxic positivity. But cultivating a positive mindset is not the same thing as being toxically positive. Cultivating a positive mindset actually just makes your life a lot easier. When you start seeing things and start interpreting things in a more positive way, and you start looking at life through a more positive lens, it doesn't stop the bad shit, obviously. It just means that actually, when you come from a place of positivity more than negativity, you can actually handle all the shit that life throws at you a lot better.
Yeah.
Whereas, rather than coming from that sort of victim mentality and that really sort of negative mindset that so many of us have. And especially at the moment, the way that people are thinking about the world at the moment. And I think was it last week that we talked about this, that ultimately the world is both beautiful and completely fucked up, but depending on the lens through which you are looking, that is what you're going to find. So if you are looking through a lens of, oh my god, the world is just all gone to shit, then that's what you are going to find. If you're looking through a lens of the world is incredible and beautiful and people are good, that is what you're going to find. So it always comes down to that awareness and that choice that we make, because it is a choice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big thing, part of it, is just questioning some of those thoughts. I mean, as we always say, it comes back, first of all, to awareness. You've got to obviously be aware of what is popping into your head. So if you, for example, I mean, a really common belief is money, we all have our own money stories. Again, because of the way we've been brought up, or for one experience or another which we've had. But it's just a matter of questioning that, because for so long, I don't know about you, you just think that's everybody believes what you believe.
Yeah.
You just think that's
Yeah.
normal. But actually, gosh, every single person I think has a money story of some point, of some value. Well, I don't know if it's value or not, but of some, it's there. And so it's really important to question that. It's like, is that actually true? Is that actually what I want to believe? And often, so many of us have a real sense of lack when it comes to money, as opposed to abundance. And actually, that is something which has been fed to you, or something that you've led to believe, and actually perhaps isn't necessarily true. So it's something to really start to think about, rather than thinking, for example, I'll never be good with money. You can start to reframe that as in, I'm actually learning to make better financial choices for myself. It's just a different way of looking at it. But this is why I love things. Well, why I love my breathwork sessions in the mornings, which I also guide for others, is because we always have an intention each morning. And when you do something like breathwork and you quiet your mind and you get into your body, you're kind of taking your prefrontal cortex off, that which is your thinking brain, you're taking that offline. So actually you can program yourself, your subconscious, much more easily. And so the suggestions that you make to yourself, or that I make as a guide, can actually really sink in much, much more easily. And so a lot of what I do is self-worth. You are good enough, feel your confidence, all those amazing feelings which make you feel great. Because actually, once you take away that thinking brain, you can get right down into those core beliefs and really start to question them and put the ones in that you want. A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
Yeah, completely. It's so true. I'm just trying to think if we can give some like practical tips apart from. I mean, I I would always say do some affirmations to change your change your subconscious beliefs, because we had that's the thing. It's like we can tell ourselves something a million times over in our conscious mind, but actually it's gonna land. If so, for example, if you do affirmations in the middle of the day when you're wide awake, if you suddenly go, I am enough, I am abundant, I am, I am worthy, I am financially free, da 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 da. When you do affirmations when your brain is in, I can't remember what brainwave state, but when you're wide awake, that is just literally gonna, when you say those affirmations at that time of day, they're not going to go any further than your conscious mind, which is why it's so crucial to do these kinds of practices in a state of when your brainwaves are really slowed down, i.e., when you've just got up or before you're just drifting off to sleep. I do this thing where when I lie in bed, I do a bit of like visualization as I'm going to sleep. I try and actually this is a good practice for anyone to get into, just because I think it's so easy to sort of get into bed at night and lie and worry about this or worry about that or feel anxious about this or that. But if you can get into a habit of feeding your mind as you're going to sleep with the things that you're grateful for, that's it. I found that to be a really, really good practice. So now it's automatic for me when I lie down in bed to think about what I'm grateful for and to do a little bit of a visualization about my future life, which I also do in the morning when I'm meditating. In fact, speaking of meditations, I can I just say, the more you meditate, the better it gets, I find. And what is so interesting is that I've started doing longer meditations recently, and I've been doing them kind of up to an hour. And I did one this morning. I didn't even have music this morning. What is incredible is when you are meditating and you are so dropped into that state, you are so in the kind of 5D rather than the 3D, when you are so in that sort of higher part of yourself and that kind of consciousness, that awareness, time goes like that. It's
Mm.
unbelievable. And this morning, that is exactly what happened to me. I did an hour, and when I opened my eyes and checked my phone to see what time it was, I was like, "Oh my God, I've been meditating for an hour," and it literally felt like 5 or 10 minutes. It's quite incredible, but
Amazing.
time is an illusion. But that's another thing altogether. I'm not sure I'm remotely qualified to talk about that, but it's very interesting. Time is, relativity, isn't it?
Yeah,
And but it's so interesting how you can go into meditation for an hour and it can literally feel like 5 minutes, and you're not asleep. You are
I
still
know.
conscious,
It's
but the time just flies. It's wild. It's
it is
absolutely
crazy. I
wild.
always get that after my longer breathwork sessions, which I do with people. They're always like, "Oh my God, was that an hour?" And it's like, "Yeah." It's like, "My God, it felt like five
Yeah,
minutes." Days like that. But that's when your thinking brain gets out the way,
exactly.
and you're just kind of in. You're just in wherever you're not
And it's
thinking, and it's
the key,
it,
but that's the key to our subconscious mind. That is like
mm,
opening the door, opening the lock to our subconscious mind when you are in that state, whether it's through breath work or through meditation. That is when your subconscious mind is really, really, really open to suggestion. So
yeah,
if you want to change a belief, or if you want to change a story and tell yourself a different story, that is the time to do it, because that is when it's actually going to be able to get through the 5% of your conscious mind into the 95% that is your subconscious mind. And we have to remind ourselves often that our subconscious mind is driving the show of our lives. It's as simple as that, which is why it's so incredibly important to make sure that the things that are in our subconscious mind are things that are serving us, not things that aren't serving us,
yeah.
you know.
And also, you can get into that subconscious mind though when you're in that flow state. So if you don't
Yeah,
necessarily have to be meditating or doing breath work, but you can also be doing something you absolutely love, which is giving you joy. Because again, in those moments, that's when time is just fleeting. It just goes so quickly.
yeah,
That's when you know you're in a real flow state,
yeah,
and your thinking brain's again gone offline. If you're very creative and you're doing some artwork, or if you're playing your music, you probably know this through
yeah.
music. If you're doing something, you're just in it. And occasionally it's happened when I've been running. Doesn't happen enough. I'd like it to happen more. But it is, it's those moments when you're just so involved and in that flow state. And that ultimately is the goal, I think, always for whatever you're doing. I mean, I can sit and write something or do something, or and for me, if I'm making playlists, or then I'm in that state, I just love it and time just
Yeah,
goes.
yeah,
So yeah, it's just about asking yourself, what are those things I absolutely love to do? Do
mm,
more of them. I know we're always going, well, I don't have time, I don't have time, and I'm the same. But it's about, right, can I make a little bit more time to
mm,
do those things? Maybe it's writing, maybe whatever it is.
yeah,
It's really such a positive thing to be able to do more of what you love, because when you're doing that, you are fully aligned
yeah,
to who you are. That's when that is what your soul is
yeah,
crying out for you to do, and just do more of that, because you're in everything's working for
yeah,
you. It's just like you're in the flow.
yeah.
It's all good.
Totally. Well, that is when you are on the frequency of the things that you want.
Yes.
When you are in that flow state, when you are in that alignment, that is when you are vibrating on the same frequency as the things that you want, and that is how you start to draw them into your life. You
Yeah.
know, like I talk so much about energy and frequency, and I because it's just I believe so strongly that it's so important. And life is a game of energy. We're playing this sort of dance with the universe, and we've got to. And this is why you and I talk so much about prioritizing joy, prioritizing the things that make you feel good, because ultimately, life is a dance with energy. It's a game. It's knowing how to play the energy of the universe, because we are all energy. 99.99999% energy. All of us are vibrating all the time, different speeds, different frequencies. So, you know, we have to just continually check in with ourselves. What frequency am I vibrating on right now? What radio station am I tuned into? Am I tuned into LAC FM or not? And if I am, what do I want to be tuned into?
Yeah.
What frequency am I vibrating on? It's so important, because we are going to get more in our life of what we put out. So it's like we are a mirror. It's like whatever it is that we are putting out there is what we're going to reflect back in our external life. And I know that sounds really woo, but actually it's not. It's actually quantum science. It really truly is. I find this whole thing absolutely fascinating. But I think when you kind of realize that life really is just it's learning to play with energy, then it can get really fun, and then really exciting things start to happen when you start aligning your energy with the things that you want rather than things that you don't want. But we are just all so used to focusing on the things that we don't want rather than things that we do want. We end up
Yeah.
worrying about this or worrying about that, rather than being led by like a vision of where we want to go and focusing on that.
Yeah.
We tend to look back instead of looking forward. Yeah. Anyway, we've talked about that. We've talked about that on another Monday
Yeah.
Motivation, haven't we?
Well, yeah, yeah. So I think that's probably everything we've got to say today. But it's so true. Things come to you when you are fully aligned and your
Yeah.
energy is right. I'm off to Dubai on Sunday.
I
That just
know.
landed in my lap to go and do some breath work, which is so exciting. But these things, it just suddenly, when something just comes to you and it's just so easy and feels so good, then you know
Yeah.
that's where that's when you're in the right place. Don't get me wrong though, yesterday, for example, I was in a right old funk and I knew it, and I kept kind of saying, why am I in a funk? There's nothing bad in my life which I should be in such a funk about, but I just couldn't get
Mm,
myself out of it.
mm,
Thankfully, this morning I've woken up and I feel bad, I feel out of it. So sometimes you are just going to not feel as bright and breezy as you'd
yeah,
like
of
to be,
course.
but it's just kind of going with that, but knowing that you can get back
Yeah.
to your set point, which hopefully is of a higher vibration, and just
Yeah.
go for that.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a joy. Have fun in Dubai.
Thanks, thanks. Yes,
I look
yeah,
forward
I'm
to
looking
hearing
forward
all
to it.
about it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thank you. We'll be back. We won't be here on Monday. We will be
The
here. I don't know
following
when.
Monday. The
Probably the
following
following
Monday, I think.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
All
my
right,
love.
love. Speak to you later.
Okay.
Have
All
a great
right.
time. Lots of
Bye.
love.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.